Morning comes to Eden, and dew lies on the grass like pearls. Adam wakes up. He slept great. He always sleeps great. And he turns and looks at his wife, and he sees that surprisingly she looks disheveled and red-faced like she had a terrible night. So he pokes her and says, "Eve, wake up. Wake up, Eve. Eve, you're a gift to my life, and the day is a gift as well. Wake up. Eve, we have to go to work. Wake up, Eve." Eve wakes up startled, and she says, "Oh, good morning, Adam. I had the most interesting dreams. I dreamed that I heard a voice that was kind of yours, but kind of not, like you know how it is in a dream. And the voice said, 'Come outside, Eve. The air is so cool in the nighttime, and the nightingale sings sweetly in the moonlight.' So I got up, and I didn't see you or anybody, so I followed the voice out deeper into the garden. And there I saw the tree of knowledge silhouetted against the moon, and it looked so pretty." Eve continues, "In my dream there was also an angel looking at the tree, who said to it, 'Tree, your fruit looks so tasty that I won't let anyone stop me from eating you.' And then he reached out and plucked the fruit and ate it, and I gasped. Then the angel turned to me and said, 'Eve, this fruit is even sweeter because it's forbidden. Why don't you eat some as well? You deserve the joy it'll bring you. You deserve the knowledge it'll bring you that will make you like a goddess.' Then he reached out and offered me the fruit, and I ate a bite myself. Then the angel and I rose up into the air, and I could see all of the earth stretched before me. It was beautiful. Then suddenly the angel was gone, and I plunged back to the earth, and I woke up." Adam says, "That dream sounds like bad news, Eve. But you know, the mind can do funny things. It spends all day taking information from our five senses and then using that to form opinions and make decisions. But at night, all that input is missing, and it just spits out random information, essentially. We don't have any control over it. So even though you dreamed about eating the forbidden fruit, I know you would never do that in real life." Adam continues, "Come outside with me, Eve. It's a new day and the fresh air will make you feel better." So Eve puts on a weak smile and she dries her tears with her hair, and Adam is satisfied. They step outside. The sun in the morning has just crested the horizon. They see the sunrise and begin their morning prayers, the words spilling spontaneously out of them. Adam and Eve begin their song of praise for God. "We got it together, didn't we? Nobody but you and me. We got it together, Lord. You're the first, my last, my everything, and the answer to all of my dreams. You're the sun, the moon, my guiding star, my kind of wonderful. That's what you are, Lord." Adam and Eve continue their prayer. "The entire universe in its ceaseless motion never ceased to praise you, O Lord. The mist that rises from the ground and the rain that falls from the sky do so in your honor. The wind that blows from all directions causes the trees to tremble before you, and the grass to bow down. And if my voice should falter, or if I lose the words to pray to you, let all the animals on the ground and in the water and in the air take up my song. Thank you, Lord, for the gift of the day to come. And we pray that you dispel the evil of the night behind us." Having finished their prayers, Eve and Adam begin their day's work, pruning trees and arranging vines in the garden. Meanwhile, in heaven, God alongside the archangel Raphael are watching them. God says to Raphael, "You've heard reports that Satan has escaped from hell. I need you to go down to earth and speak with Adam. Talk to him as a friend, and let him know that Satan has been to the garden and means to do him harm. not by violence, but by persuasion. Remind Adam that he has a free will to resist this persuasion, but let him know that he is in danger. I don't expect that this will stop him from doing what he's going to do, but this way, at least, Adam will not be able to say that he wasn't forewarned. Raphael does not hesitate to carry out his mission. Immediately, he takes flight, and all the crowds of angels part before him to make way. And as he approaches the gates of heaven, they open up automatically. As he passes through the gates, he can see the entire universe stretched out before him. All the stars and planets, and even in the distance, he can see the earth and the tall trees of Eden. So he flies as fast as he can, racing towards Eden. As he approaches Earth's atmosphere, he startles the birds, and he looks to anyone who's watching like a phoenix flying to the sun. It's noon. The day shift of Eden's angel guards are patrolling when they see Raphael arrive at the east gate. They all rise at his approach. When he lands, he carefully folds his 3 pairs of wings behind him. He has one at his shoulders, one at his midsection, and one at his feet. Then he purposefully marches through the fragrant fields of flowers until he arrives at Adam and Eve's bower, where they have retired to escape the noontime heat. Eve is inside preparing a fresh lunch of fruits, while Adam stands in the doorway and watches Raphael approach. Adam says, "Come take a look, Eve. A stranger from heaven has come down to earth. That's so cool. I can hardly believe it. Maybe I can get him to join us for lunch. So why don't you set an extra place at the table and put out some extra food for our guest?" Eve replies, "We don't have extra food, Adam, but I can go get some from the garden. After all, we don't want our guest to say that we're not gracious hosts." Eve carefully plans out the lunch menu. She knows that if the hospitality is insufficient, she and not Adam is the one who will be judged for it. She decides to serve fruit alongside other fruit. In the garden at this time, there were not a lot of other options available. To drink, she provides grape juice, non-alcoholic of course, and she spreads aromatic herbs around the room. Meanwhile, Adam goes out to meet Raphael on the road as he approaches. He does his best to look as solemn as possible for his distinguished guest, and as he comes close, he solemnly bows down low. And as he is naked, by doing so he solemnly moons half of the garden. Adam says to the archangel Raphael, "I want to thank you for coming down from heaven. I assume you came from heaven, and honoring us by visiting us here on the earth. And I was wondering if maybe you might possibly want to join me and my wife for lunch, where we were just about to have lunch and we wanted to know if you wanted to join us." And Raphael replies, "First of all, I'm flattered. Yes, I suppose I have the time. I'd be delighted to join you." So they walk into the bower, and Eve has prepared lunch, and she is naked. Milton once again reminds us, as he does over and over again, that Eve is naked, even though they're all naked. And she is beautiful, and she is unashamed. The table is piled high, and as the 3 of them eat, Raphael says, "Thank you, Eve, for preparing this delicious meal. May your family grow to be as large and as varied as all the fruits from the trees of Eden." Adam asks, "Do angels even eat people food?" And the angel replies, "Yes, we do require sustenance. And as Eden was intended as a place for both humans and angels to intermingle, the fruits here were created by God to be delicious to us both." Raphael explains, everything in existence consumes and is consumed, even the elements. Think about a shoreline that is washed away by the sea. That is the earth feeding the water. Or mist rising up off of a lake. That is the water feeding the air. Or a breeze that causes a campfire to flare up. That is air feeding fire. In heaven, the angels eat from the ambrosial tree of life. But these fruits you have prepared are also part of God's creation, and worthy of partaking. And so the angel Raphael begins to eat, not just metaphysically or metaphorically, but literally. And here, the poet John Milton makes sure to specify that he will also defecate, although he reassures the reader that he will do so without difficulty. Throughout the meal, Eve keeps everyone's glasses topped up. When they've finished eating, Adam realizes he has a rare opportunity to ask the angel about the nature of morality and why God created the world, and whether the universe is inherently good, bad, or indifferent, and what goals, if any, an angel should strive for when they've already attained perfection. So he looks at Raphael soberly and asks, "So what's heaven like?" Raphael says, "All things in this world spring from God, and they all carry some of his holy nature. Those that are closer to him are more spiritual, and those that are farther away are more earthly, but they are all his. Imagine a tree. Its roots are compact and utilitarian, while its flowers are airy and ornamental, but they are all part of the same organism. In the same way, we are all part of God's kingdom. Adam, you are both animal and angel, but through prayer and discussion with those like me, and through obedience to God, you may cultivate your angelic side and ascend to a higher plane of happiness than you could possibly imagine." Adam replies, "That's really cool, Raphael. But what did you mean about that part where you said obedience to God? Does that mean there's such a thing as disobedience?" Raphael says, "Damn. Well, yes. Think of it this way. The power to choose whether or not to serve God and remain happy is yours. You have free will. God doesn't want to force you to worship him. After all, if he made you do it, he wouldn't know if you were truly willing or not." Raphael continues, "Just like you, we angels remain in God's grace through our free will. And even among us angels, there are some who have fallen. Fallen from obedience, fallen from happiness, and fallen from heaven itself. Remember this." Adam replies, "I get it now. I really do. But just in case I don't quite get it, could you explain it a little more? Like, we have plenty of time. The day is still young. Couldn't you go over it one more time?" Raphael hesitates, but then he says, "Yes, Adam, I will tell you the story of the rebellion in heaven, but I have two concerns. First, I will do my best to say it in words that you can understand. And second, I do not wish to glorify this war, and yet in stories, war always sounds glorious. Remember that." So this story begins a long time ago. Many days in the past, in fact, before the creation of the earth, so before the first day, and before the creation of the sun, so before the first year. At this time, God summoned all the angels to heaven for a conference, and we came, all in our finest outfits, with ribbons and medals and gleaming buttons, each trying to outdo the next. When all the angels are gathered and lined up, God says, "I have an announcement to make. I have appointed my son to be the instrument of my power and to reign alongside me in heaven. From now on, you will worship him as you worship me, and you will obey him as you obey me or suffer the consequences." The entire crowd seems well pleased by this announcement. But things are not always as they seem. A day of celebration followed. The angels held a great dance, each one moving in intricate individual curving patterns, so the cumulative effect was like this movement of stars throughout the night sky. As they moved, they sang songs to please God's ear. After the dance, there was a feast, the angels dining sumptuously on nectar and angel food cake. Following the feast, twilight was settling over heaven, for true night never comes there, and the angels grew weary, all except God himself, whose watchful eye is eternally vigilant. That night, as all the other angels lay asleep in their camps, the rows of tents filling the fields around heaven, Satan lay awake, seething. He knew that the promotion of God's Son to rule over heaven meant a demotion for himself, and this thought squeezed out all other thoughts from his mind, and it filled him with rage. He decided that rather than acquiesce to this, he would take his faction of angels and leave heaven to rule themselves. But in order to convince a faction, he had to start by convincing one, and he decided to start with his compatriot Beelzebub, and in the middle of the night he snuck over to Beelzebub's tent. Satan whispered, "Beelzebub, wake up, Beelzebub. You heard God's orders putting his son in charge. I was wondering if you had any opinion about that." "Certainly, I've got my own opinion. But we can't talk here, so here's what we're going to do. This very night we will break camp, and with our followers we will march toward our headquarters in the north. From there we will prepare to give God's Son the welcome he deserves, if you know what I mean." So Satan and Beelzebub called on all their officers in secret and told them about this plan. And while heaven was still in twilight, a third of heaven's angels marched away. Meanwhile, as Satan and his troops make their secret retreat, God, who is omniscient, knows everything they're doing, which spoils the drama a bit. He says to his son, "Get a load of this. Satan means to leave us and create his own kingdom to the north, or maybe even storm our own throne." The son replies, "Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening. Don't worry. I'll raise an army of my own in defense, and I will either crush Satan and his troops, or I will prove myself a little tiny baby, because only a baby could lose to Satan." Meanwhile, Satan took wing and flew across the great expanses of heaven, followed by his troops as numerous as dewdrop on the leaves in the morning. When they arrived in the north, Satan sat down upon his throne, a gaudy, glittering, diamond-encrusted chair, as tall as a mountain on a mountain. There he assembled all of the angels before him and prepared to speak. Satan says to his followers, "Welcome, lords of heaven. Or can I even call you that when God has imposed another ruler over us? Will you willingly bend the knee to not one, but 2 kings? If you are the free angels that I know you to be, perhaps you will not. After all, you are mighty, and you were born to rule, not to serve." Suddenly, a voice interjects from the back of the crowd. "Excuse me." It is Abdiel, the archangel. "Excuse me. I disagree. I disagree. How can you disobey God when he specifically told you not to? You say it's unfair for him to put his son in charge of us, but that's impossible because God invented fairness. And you say it might be bad for us to go along with it, but that doesn't make any sense. God told us it would be good. And he knows everything." Abdiel continued, "What? You think it's unnecessary, even unjust, for God to put his son in charge because you're capable of ruling yourself? First of all, you must have a pretty high opinion of yourself to say that. And second, God's Son was the instrument by which his Father created the universe, and that includes you. You think he wants to spend his time ordering you about? You should be honored that God is putting his Son practically on your level, just one step removed. You should be grateful, and you should be very sorry and go apologize right now and end this foolishness." Abdiel finished his speech, but he was not met with applause or cheers, just a wave of silence from the other angels. Satan replied to Abdiel, "You say we owe God our allegiance because he created us. But I don't remember God creating me. Do you? Do any of you? No. The truth is that we were created by fate in the natural course of things, and we were raised up to our current position by our own power. Our potential is just within our reach. All we have to do is grab it. So yes, Abdiel, we will return to God, as you say, but not to beg for forgiveness. Instead, we will come to put him under siege. Now go and tell your king what we plan to do." He finished speaking, and the sound rose up from the crowd like following the course of a brook, beginning as a murmur and then ending as the roar of a waterfall. Still, through it all, Abdiel stood alone, defiant. Abdiel replied, "So be it. You want to remove yourself from God's love? Soon you'll feel his hatred. You question whether God in fact created you. Soon you'll find out whether or not he can destroy you." At that point, he realized that no one was listening. So Abdiel, the one angel in the entire crowd who had remained faithful to God, turned his back on Satan's throne and walked away.